Hello everyone, this is Evelina Feel Grow Live here. We're going to talk about why mindset work or anything that you're trying to do on the mind level, any habit you're trying to introduce, the decisions that you're trying to change or anything that you're trying to change but is not working. You keep running into the same wall. You keep trying to understand everything from your intellectual side of things, from the rational and the logic, and you keep thinking, right, this is not working, or you trying to introduce a new habit, or you're trying to stop a habit, and you're trying to do it from the level of your head, and it's not working, and you're thinking, what is wrong with me? Why am I stuck? Why do I keep running into the same wall? Why am I not capable of this? Or, I must be not capable. I must be stupid, or I'm not intelligent enough. Let me tell you this from the start. That is all wrong. Because you're operating from the idea that your mind is the master. And it's probably true in some cases, but one of the things that is most commonly missed by people, and I say I'm a therapist and I've done it many times, where I walked alongside people who've tried to address their mental health, tried to address their anxiety, tried to address their depression from the level of their mind, right? So the missing link here is your body and your nervous system. It's absolutely impossible. It's impossible. It's not happening. If you're trying to do something, introduce something, or you're trying to shift your mindset or decide on a new habit without actually acknowledging the link, the connection, and the actual fact that your mind, your brain, right, which is your mind is the extension of your brain, is rooted in your body and in your nervous system. This is the missing link that people don't talk about enough. Yes, there's a lot of talk about nervous system and the vagus nerve and all of that, but in the mindset work, I don't see it happening much, so I want to address that. I want to show you something that you may not be aware of, but that could give you a lot of answers to why you might be struggling with your mental health. So if you suffer with anxiety or depression and it keeps coming back, you're doing all these things, right? You get anxious very often, or you don't even know you're anxious, right? But for some reason you run into a block, into a wall, into I can't get past that. Or let's say, you're trying to introduce something in your life, right? So let's say you're trying to start a gym, right? And you say, right, this is important, right? Okay. Well, I want you to know that you're not the boss of your body. Your body is the boss of you. So actually, your nervous system is your boss. It's like your CEO. It runs the show until it doesn't, until you bring it into awareness and all of that. But that's, that requires work and some skill, etc. But this is why everything you're trying to do from your head, from the level of your head, you decide, you get inspired, you listen to someone, you listen to some guru, or you listen, and yeah, you can get a momentum out of this, but after a couple of weeks or a week sometime or whatever, you are completely falling apart and you go back to your old habits, right? And you think, right, maybe I haven't invested enough energy, or maybe I don't have the willpower or whatever. Nervous system is the boss, right? So I want to talk to you about how your nervous system was programmed, and that's the first programming. This is the most important pieces of knowledge. I've been a therapist for many years, and I worked on the intellectual and emotional and psychological level, completely that this is how I was trained, right? And yes, I did get some results for people. We did get some changes, etc. But it wasn't until I found this work, I found this approach, and I found it. It seems to me like this is a fuller picture, and this is the only thing that works. Like working with your body, and I'll tell you why, right? Your body is programmed by evolution or God or whatever the narrative you want to apply to this. And it's programmed for survival, right? So that's the first thing you do. And come on, like think about it when you're hungry or think about when you don't have enough sleep. Your body takes over. Think how your body runs the show for you. You have no idea what goes on in your body. Like you have no idea what your liver is doing, what your kidneys are doing. You completely detached from this. And that's part of the programming, right? That's part of why we are in this shit when it comes to mental health. Because instead of actually giving people knowledge about their nervous system, what we're doing in mental health profession is we keep talking about stuff, completely ignoring the subconscious, unconscious part of your mind. And unconscious and subconscious part of your mind is your body. So that's the first programming. You being born into an environment which, and bearing in mind that survival is your first need, right? So you're a little baby with no speech, you have no autonomy over your body, but you will get your needs met for survival. You're going to get fed and you're going to be taken care of because you can scream, right? And are you making those decisions? No. Evolution made those decisions, or God, or universe, or the life force that's within you. So, and still have that force, right? And here you are, 35 years later or 27 years later, trying to decide, oh, my need is actually to lose 30 pounds. Or I need to be doing this, or I want this, right? It doesn't even cut to the surface, because how your nervous system is programmed by evolution absolutely comes first. That's why you don't get to decide what your body is doing, right? Because your body will take over. So when you lose motivation, when you're trying to introduce something, or when you can't give up a habit that you know it's harmful, we need to look at it from the perspective of the nervous system, right? And this is my mission, to make people bring them to think about their nervous system and how powerful that is. It controls every single function of your body. So understanding its needs and how it was programmed is absolutely crucial when it comes to understanding how your mind works and how your brain works, right? Because it's like, here you are trying to move, trying to do mindset work and trying to shift some shit, completely ignoring the fact that the way your body was programmed in the first part of life when you were a child is what worked for you, and this is how you survived. Because your first need is survival, and how you're going to do it is by belonging. So the need of belonging meets the need of survival, right? So obviously, if you're very lucky and you've had a really fantastic family and you got all your needs met, that's great. Don't watch this video, go away and enjoy yourself. But let's think about and if you haven't, so then you are in the majority and you're struggling with mental health. Because the truth is, mental health is not mental, really. It's your brain and your mind are rooted in your physiology and in your body. It's an extension of your physiology. It's an extension of your nervous system. So doing anything on the level of mind only and not addressing how your nervous system was programmed for survival, for belonging, because that's the only way you can actually survive historically, maybe not now, but that's unconscious beliefs. So there's a set of beliefs. This is how your personality, how your identity is being formulated. It's being formulated on the premise that you're going to become a person that you need to become in order to survive. If you're trying to lose some weight because majority of your family has an issue with weight, right? Then what that means for your nervous system is, for me to stay in this tribe, for me to survive, for me to belong, I need to stay fat, because that means safety, because that's the first need. So it's survival, belonging, and safety. And safety means very different things to each person, right? So in some families, being safe meant never speaking up, never saying anything out of line, being very disciplined or not being disciplined or whatever. So I want to talk to you about this first layer of programming. And everyone is ignoring this, and this is what gets me, and I don't want you to miss that out, because this could hold all the answers for you, okay? So let's talk about things from the very beginning. So you're being born into a family, bearing in mind that your first need is survival, belonging, and being safe. So belonging to a tribe, because being kicked out of the tribe meant death. As I can't put it more simply, right? So for you not to die, for you to survive, meant you had to play the rules of that tribe, right? And your first tribe is your family of origin. And if that family is wonderful and functional, then that's great. But the reality is, families are very dysfunctional, right? For whatever reason. But we are being born into dysfunctional units, dysfunctional tribes. That's the first tribe. And obviously communities are broken and everything. But before we talk about the broader context, bigger context, let's talk about how the little you was programmed in the first years. So whatever you're trying to achieve that doesn't match the programming of the nervous system in the first 20 years, you would do absolutely everything to belong to this tribe. You're going to play the game. You're going to play the rules, emotionally, psychologically, because subconsciously and unconsciously, not playing the game, not following the rules of that tribe, meant being kicked out of the tribe. And being kicked out of the tribe is the most painful experience, first of all. And secondly, it means death. It means not surviving. So you as a human will do absolutely everything to belong to this first tribe. And that's your first programming. So when people are trying to, rewire their brain, this is not going to work without understanding how your body is wired. Because the first wiring is your body, right? And obviously people are trying to open their heart, even though they haven't addressed the fact that the parents hurt them. People are trying to open the chakras, let's say, right? Or open their throat, or talk about emotions, even though they come from a family that we don't talk about emotions, right? So the code that was programmed into you in the first 20 years of life, it's the most important program to understand and decode and then make changes first of all, you need to bring it into consciousness, into awareness, right? You need to become conscious about how you were programmed. So that's why, when you suffer with depression or anxiety, and I really want to talk about depression here a bit more, you have been programmed, in a nutshell, to hide and to become invisible, because being visible meant being punished or being ostracized or being shamed or a lot of different things, right? So the way your mental health works and it manifests, it really comes from those first years of life, right? Because safety for you could mean that you had to completely abandon yourself, right? You had to completely ignore yourself. You had to become the version of yourself that was a persona, right? That was a persona that kept you safe and detached, and you're very creative like that. Mind and body are incredibly creative. So again, I'm saddened to say that probably 95% of people of the, who are 40 now, they come from very dysfunctional families. So not having the safety, not being able to be natural and authentic, etc., would make them go into what is called survival mode. So if your nervous system doesn't feel safe to be free to self-express emotionally, psychologically, etc., then you're going to go into survival modes, because your nervous system is your higher intelligence. So therefore, you're going to adapt a survival strategy. You're not going to be natural, because the natural wasn't safe, right? And all those things that you've been told about yourself and about the world and about other people, who is what and what is why, it just became your truth. You had to adapt it in order for you to survive and not to be kicked out of the tribe, right? So when we're talking mindset, when we're talking about changing something, I first want you to look at how you've been programmed in the first 20 years of life. And very often that programming still goes on, right? So you can't really grow up, you can't really mature. Your nervous system won't allow you, because subconsciously you're trying to hold on to that version of you that made you survived. And that needs to be honored and respected. And it's incredibly reassuring to know that, yes, you've got that version of you that, made you survive in your family, right? So whatever that is, whatever that persona that you live as, that is the version of you that helped you survive. So that's not going to go very easy, right? Your nervous system doesn't really think about your future, doesn't really think about your goals, your aspirations, what you want to be, etc. Your nervous system wants you to survive. So belonging to the family of origin, to your first tribe, and think about how many tribes we have today. You've got your group of friends, you've got your work, you've got your spouse, and then you've got your children, right? So this programming goes on all the time. So when you're trying to make changes, when you're trying to understand yourself and you're struggling to see what's going on, and you're trying to force yourself into changes, and even though you think, oh my God, this is really good for you, so I should be doing this, but then you start doing this and you can't, or you want to try and stop something and you can't. Think about what it meant for you in the first 20 years of life to stay safe and to belong. Because that could be the answer, because this is where the work is. The work is to know your nervous system, what patterns it had to repeat daily, monthly, yearly for you to belong, right? And it's no longer the case that in order to survive, you had to belong to your tribe and change. So you are programmed for not changing, because whatever the strategy your nervous system decided on, right, that's what works. And your nervous system just clings on to the familiar, because changing is uncomfortable. So you will be clinging on to the version of yourself that survived. You will be like, no, no, I'm not. And your mind will too, because your mind is an extension of your nervous system. Your brain is rooted in your nervous system, is part of your nervous system, which is in your entire body. So I've known many cases where, for example, with education, the family was not educated, and someone was trying to educate themselves and go to university, they were very intelligent. Subconsciously, you know that getting a degree or being successful would mean disapproval from the tribe, because being different is not something that would make you survive. Being the same makes you survive, right? So you will sabotage your success. The same with losing weight and all the other sort of changes that people are trying to make. So things that are important are relationship with food. So if you grew up in a family where the relationship with food was that of we constantly indulge, you know, this is how we show love, right? And it's going to be incredibly difficult for you, and everyone is, you know, fat and happy and this is us and all that. But then you're trying to lose weight and you can't, because you know that you will achieve something your tribe was not able to, then you know you're going to get ostracized and you go into self-sabotage. Your nervous system will sabotage it because it's different, it's unfamiliar, it's not aligned with your primary programming. So you see yourself as fat, you've been always a chubby child, then that's you, right? So when you're trying to lose weight, this is why you might be sabotaging. The same with success, being poor versus being rich, right? And having a certain job, etc. The reality is, very rarely the first programming is aligned with who you truly are, because no one knows who they are. No one is born with this. So trying to address things on the mind level is not going to work. You're going to run into the same wall all the time. And it can be really frustrating. You're going to go on a loop. You're going to go and, like, you know, you're going to run this cycle for a long time. You know, this manifests as having the same problems in. So I want to bring you awareness, and I hope I gave you some answers. Think about your nervous system. That's your programming. That's your first programming. And that's obviously manifests on the level of the brain and on the mind, right? So all the ideas that you might be having, and it manifests everywhere in your relationships. So ideas about love, what it means to be loved, everything you saw, everything your body went through, right? It's the programming. So if you have certain set of experiences, and you've been betrayed, whether you had a father or you had, what is the role models that you've been exposed to, etc. It's crucial to decode first before you go into working on yourself and on your mental health, because your mental health, it's an extension of your nervous system health, of your physiology, of your body. If these two are disconnected, that's why you're frustrated, because you feel that that's not the answer. That's why talking therapy doesn't work a lot of the times, because you go on, people go, and I'm a therapist, so I can say that, And they keep talking about things and they just keep attaching words to this, right? But if the nervous system is not addressed, nothing is going to change. There might be some peripheral changes, but ultimately, if your nervous system is programmed for love is hard, you're going to stay in shitty relationship. If nervous system is programmed for things like love doesn't exist, there you go, right? If you've been told the story and your body had never experienced, embraced and love and unconditional love, right? So not the love that has conditions. I'm going to love you when you behave like this. I'm going to love you if you don't do that. I'm only going to love you if you are nice and pleasant, etc. Then that's the programming, and you're going to be leaning towards that. You're going to be resonating with that kind of programming. So you're going to respond to this thing. Your body will, oh, that's familiar, that's safety. So there we go. We're going to go there. We're going to stay in the relationship, in a shitty relationship. I'm going to be disrespected. It doesn't matter. He loves me or she loves me, right? So, and then everything stems from that. Your emotional health, your mental health, your psychological health, your financial health, right? And then that gets transferred onto your kids if you have them, right? So I want to bring you awareness. If you remember anything from this video tomorrow, please remember this. The relationship with your body, this is where you start, right? So you need to relearn, you need to teach your body what it means to be safe. So you need to give your body a reparative experience, right? So if you grew up in chaos, you're going to recreate this chaos. If you grew up in discipline, you're going to be really harsh. You're going to tyrannize yourself with perfection, for example, right? If you've never experienced healthy conflict and the only way to survive in your house was to avoid conflict, you're going to avoid conflict. You're going to avoid any sort of confrontation, right? So you're going to go into this survival stage, which made you survive unconsciously. You don't get to make those decisions. So understanding your nervous system programming is absolutely crucial when you want to work on yourself, when you want to work on your mental health. So yeah, I have a course about that, and it's called Mechanics of Mental Health. It's an ABC of nervous system programming, right? And you cannot bypass this. You cannot. No work on the mental level is going to be lasting or impactful in the long term if you don't address how your nervous system was programmed. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next video.